What is the legacy of European Capital of Culture project is a question, I think, one of the most important questions which we ask ourselves even before we start writing the bid book, and something that we think about long after this is over and we are thinking what is left behind that titular year, I would say. What will remain. And legacies can be different. They can be tangible, they can be intangible, they can be visible, invisible, which also evokes the European Capital of Culture Novi Sad 2022 project. One of the legacies of European Capital of Culture Novi Sad, which are thematically grouped in a certain timeline stemming from 17th century until the 20th century, is a creative district project, which is both architectural project, it's a project of regeneration and urban transformation, but also it's a project that is about content. It is one of the largest projects and perhaps the most controversial ones, followed by the fear of gentrification. And we are here today to talk about these processes, to talk about Novi Sad as our case study here, but also to talk about other cities and other examples of transformation. And we are here today, with Eva Riccio. Eva is a representative in front of La Friche complex in Marseille. Here is Jordi Pardo, who is among many things, I would say, also an expert for European Commission and for European Capital of Culture project, and was once a member of the panel, as I recall. Jordi is from Barcelona. And Petar Mirković, artist, one of the residents of Creative District here in Novi Sad. Welcome. My name is Monica Bilbija. I'm an architect, performance designer, and I will be guiding you through this talk. So let's open this talk by, I think, the most important question or topic or theme, and that would be urban transformation. We know through history that careful urban planning, what can it do to a city? We know what urban planning can bring forth, and we know how urban transformation can revive a city. For example, we know about the urban planning of Barcelona and what Cerda did there. We know what happens when we have a plain field, like a white canvas, and what happens when we have a city which was developed over the centuries, ages. For example, Rome on one hand and Chandigarh on another hand. So my first question would be, what are the projects that you can pinpoint as success stories and good examples from your own personal experiences, or something that you participated in, or something that you didn't participate in but you would like to highlight as good examples? And I would like Eva to start with this.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be invited here and to share the experience of La Friche La Belle de Mai. La Friche has 30 years this year and in 2022, and I have been also a center of Marseille European Capital of Culture. So I think with your question I will try to explain a little bit our project which have been developed, and maybe pinpoint some project into the project which can be interesting to our conversation, and you will see a lot of bridges with our former conversation with Cultural Station, and which have been made here in Novi Sad. So for a starter, La Friche, and it's also an echo to our conversation these days, as a big heritage, cultural heritage and industrial heritage. It's, the space was a former tobacco factory. which closed in 1987. It employed a lot of people into the city, have been an economic lung for a lot of people. And because of this industrialization and also the fact that brown tobacco was not fashionable anymore, the gitan was not smoked, and the economical activity dropped, and the factory closed. In the beginning of the 90s, Christian Poitvin, aka Julien Blaine, the artist, was deputy mayor of culture in the city hall of Marseille, and talked with two other directors of theaters, national scenes, into the city, and wanted to create new scenes and new possibility to encounter publics, to create and to diffuse culture and arts. We talked about socialization of arts at this moment, and for 2 years, experimentation in all the space have been created. We are talking about acres of space really abandoned in the middle of tobacco leaves. Artists, performing arts and visual artists tried to create new meetings with the publics and new forms of contemporary arts. In the few years, we had different phases of modification linked to the context of public policies, but also the context of the neighborhood, of the city transformation. And so until 2006, there were a lot of experimentation of publics and creation, artistic creation, really, a space of work, a space of research in an artistic level. From 2007 to 2012, there have been a shift of organization because of the title of European Capital of Culture. The space had to organize and was a big center of activities, artistic activities and cultural activities into the program. And so the association who before were coordinating all the artistic and cultural activities made a fusion with a private society, a cooperative one, for two reasons. One reason is about the legal form, with how the management of the investment and urban transformation we needed to do in 100,000 meters square to open everything to the public and to transform the space. And also because the legal form had to be really in a mirror into the ideology of a cooperative and collective project between artists and public policies and inhabitants and association. So 2013 were the time of explosion of activities, of shows, of exhibition from all around the world, and make a big focus into Marseille and La Friche. And from 2013 until now, last year, 2 years ago, we started to think that we made a lot of efforts about the space, and maybe we have to focus into the content, into the governance, into how we are linked to the neighborhood, the area, the inhabitants, and with a mix of activities between arts, disciplines, and sports. Also, we opened a lot of public spaces, which changed our way of thinking. So today we are in a space of welcoming 65 independent organizations in all the cultural and artistic disciplines, apart circus maybe. It represents 400 people working every day, and 600 artistic and cultural events every year. So a lot of activity, a lot of crossover between disciplines. We have also a restaurant, a daycare, a skate park, a lot of things which are communicate to each other. This whole organization has been thought first by architectural master plans, and how to say that? It's have been thought by 3-4 people in architecture, arts and culture, in a really top-down way of thinking, which was the way we thought at this time. Really architectural because also we had to think about the circulations of publics, welcoming the publics, the security, thinking about the acoustic, about also the aesthetic. Some people, as Jean Nouvel, have been president of our cooperative society, so you can see the heritage here also. Henri Siriani or also Mathieu Poitvin have been big architects and modified the whole space. Now we are thinking about how the publics and the artists and the cultural communities are learning between each other, maybe create new innovative projects, and how maybe skateboard can be also and is it cultural practice, football, baskets, and how it is integrated in communicating with contemporary dance, for example, or actual music, techno music, this kind of disciplines that we have also. For 2 years, we organized ourselves to write the new collective master plan, which is not architectural now, but it's a cooperative one, where all the thematics that you can see here, the governance, the role of the cooperatives, the status, the economic model, and the cultural and education role with the society, how we are linked to that. We have the responsibility to think about that in a space with 30 years of experience. And to focus and to have this linked to Novi Sad, I'll see a lot of really interesting bridges. Most of all about how public policies, civil society, private stakeholders or also inhabitants try to create new methods to cooperate, to maybe share the heritage which is there, and maybe between generation of artists, of practices, between generation of public policies which are changing, how we can be a space here, there in La Friche, of experimentation still. And whereas there is the institutionalization of our space, a really big focus and a lot of funds, of public funds, how we can still be innovative and transgressive and have the freedom of experimenting new things. Just a bridge with the creative, the cultural station, sorry. We have project into project because the space is really big. But one project is the Galerie Salle des Machines. It is a little gallery open to the public for free near the skate park. The idea was to open the doors and create an entrance for publics who do not have the possibility, the interest first to see contemporary arts. And with the experience and with the time, we understand that we have to support people, and maybe we have to, because no one was coming from the skate park. Other publics were coming, but not the publics that we would like to attract. We have to rethink our methods and create a new collective of programmation, putting together social workers, artists, producers, inhabitants around the same tables, and mediators. The mediators are really important. And how we are listening to what people want to see there first, before programming. And programming with them is not really the same methods, the same skills, and the same person for doing that. So we are trying still. And we are, I think, trying also to create new bridges between sectors, between research and culture, between entrepreneurship and culture, which can create some friction and conflicts in a really constructive way inside the Friche. But also we are a lot in discussion with the public policy and not only Minister of Culture, because we are in a neighborhood where poverty is really strong. And because we are open every day for free the first year to some needs from the population, population who needs to eat, who needs to have social care first before any cultural activity, and how we are maybe an echo to public policy to take some responsibility or help us to host new skills inside because we cannot do everything. So, yeah, that will be my introduction and a short presentation of La Friche. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordi. You? Yes? Or Petar? Petar, okay.
What can I say about you mean about examples of the...
You can give us an example of something that you have participated in, or a positive or successful examples of urban transformation, of something that you, either from your own experience, that's something that you have participated in, or something that you think is a successful story that you would like to share.
Okay, I can say from my point of view as a resident here, as some of the first artists who come to this district, and we suggested that model and come with first initiatives like 12 years ago. And through my artistic career, I have a chance to visit and to participate in many exhibitions around Europe and around the world. So I saw a lot of similar projects with a transformation of industrial heritage and similar objects. So it's very specific depending of the community and the city. What model could work in which city? So we cannot talk about one universal model which you can copy to another place.
It depends on the context.
We need to see to think about what is the really specific situation. What are our what is the content and what is the potential of the city, what we have at the moment, and how we can make it alive. One part of this transpiration, we can see one already first phase that is almost done, and still a lot of things are about to be done in the future. But even on this sample at the moment, we can think about what now we can see the shape. We can imagine much easier how this area can work. Now we need to think about the content, and especially Novi Sad didn't have much examples in similar kind, and also it's a growing city. Like just 20 years ago, it was much less people in city, and less galleries, less. I'm mostly, firstly, I'm talking from the angle of the visual artist, because that is the field that I know more than in other art fields. So I arrived in this exactly in this space. This was a workshop of my friend, and we start with designing and producing river yachts. And later, I took my another space and made my studio, and another friends joined me. And then, if you have a small group of people, you already those kind of ideas comes up. And but it was clearly it was clear that that is so huge project. It couldn't be done without some bigger support, because it's a huge complex in terms of Novi Sad, and it was, let's say, abandoned for almost 50 years. So it was always maybe too big for just an easy transformation. It was necessary to something to happen, as it happened with this culture capital title, and that was the only chance. Otherwise, I think if we didn't use this opportunity, it would probably never happen. But I saw a lot of examples. Just to answer that, I haven't been, unfortunately, on some I did a small research last years, and I found a lot of ongoing projects that are at the moment mostly in, for example, in Netherlands or in Sweden, where they are transforming the train stations or big shipyards hall or to libraries and to maker spaces. And, so there is something very, let's say, poetic in the way to keep some, maybe it's easier to build a new building, but in that case you will just got a new building, and there is something, maybe it's not physical and it's not easy to explain what is behind, what is that kind of beauty if you keep part of the history and especially industrial, and to use it also for production and for creative process. This artists usually like those high roofs and a lot of lights and big doors, so you can bring some big sculptures or paintings or whatever, scenography. Or so those spaces are could inspire people to that kind of activities.
Thank you. Jordi?
Okay, Tran. Thank you. So I will ask you to stop me when you consider, because I would like to say many things, too much things. Yeah. In terms of legacy, I think here in Novi Sad you are doing an excellent work. I will explain why I'm convinced that this good work the team, the foundation is doing. These spaces, these heritage spaces are just samples of this good job. But I think there are two more crucial things. I think the process is very important. The process from the bid book, the planning, and then the development, and now the year of the celebration, it's important. And sometimes it's more important than the final delivery. Why? Because you are sharing experiences, you are changing your mind, your ideas, your thinking, and this is very important. But at the same time, because I'm convinced, I'm a practitioner, I've been working in real projects. I'm happy when the dream came to reality. Of course, we are people, architecture, creative economy, we are people of culture. All of us, we are convinced of the importance of culture. Culture is a right. Culture is providing dignity, self-esteem. But the work to be done, the job, is to let others who are in charge of the urban planning, public policies, understand that beyond the cultural dimension, culture is really, really important. And this is why I think in terms of legacy is important. If Novi Sad can show and can change minds in relation to that, this will be, in my opinion, the best legacy. I've been 6 years in the panel of 7 experts of the European Commission selecting and monitoring the candidate cities. And I think this very good idea from Melina Mercuri and Jacques Lang, of course, wonderful. But this, and I said this to the European Parliament and to the European Commission, this should be updated. Of course, we could go on having the celebration, this 1 year celebration. But I think we should have standards. We have the blue flags for the beaches. So tell me which is the figure of investment of your city on culture, the connections, the level of participation, all these, the connection between culture and the different fields with education, and I will give you the title. So of course I will go on celebrating this 1 year, but at the same time cities could get this label as a standard to say we are in this first class. And this is why I would like to show you some aspects. Of course, I will the objective of this presentation is to show, you ask us to talk about real things. I've been working in 23 countries. The dealers, Cofidio and Renfield, the architects of the Highland of New York are designing, and this will be open next February in Copacabana in Rio de Janeiro, the museum we planned years ago. But I will talk about 22 Art District in Barcelona, the District of Innovation, because I think with all the mistakes and everything can be done in a better way, is an example of success. And I will talk about that because I'm co-author of the media strategy, I was involved in this. And I think this is an example of how the work in Novi Sad you are doing should be really deeply take as a key point in the political agenda of the whole city. Not only the city council, I mean the economic operators, the people of education, the neighborhood, all the stakeholders. So of course we are, just to share something you know, but we are talking about culture. Culture is connected to innovation. It's connected to social diversity as a ways to boost innovation. Culture is connected to well-being, can create jobs directly, and of course has an impact in the GDP, in the gross domestic product. But at the same time, culture can promote, can be a driver of economic diversification. And this is what is 22 Art District an example of. From a very poor neighborhood for something which is attracting people from everywhere. And of course, this can provide as well, attractiveness and competitiveness for rural areas, neighborhoods, or cities using this. So we could go deep on that, but we have the data. 30 years ago, we didn't have the data. Now we have the strength of culture, creative economy, creativity, in transforming, in boosting the urban renewal. How to boost innovation? Because this is the challenge we are facing, because the climate change, because all these things. Attractiveness is a very important thing. A neighborhood, a street, a whole city or territory, but at the same time attracting talent, which means companies, innovation. And of course, this means that culture is connected to creativity, and all this should be in the real agenda of the urban project, because a city is not a mass of streets, squares, and buildings. A city is an idea, and the way we are managing the fiscal and the tax policies, the way the people is living is the expression, is the hardware of this idea. Of course, this is a lasting idea in time. Of course, through, and this is Britain, through attractive, we can create and promote better ways of living and new opportunities. And from a creative city, we can get in an upper level, which is attractive city, and then, of course, a city of innovation. This can be done in different ways, but of course, I think in Novi Sad you have the opportunity to do it in the best way, which is a mix of top-down and bottom-up. Sometimes this is only pushed and boosted by the city council or the public authorities. I think the right way to do the things, the change, is of course from cooperation, having projects, and connecting this to the city project, doing this, I insist, from bottom to up, but at the same time, of course, having the choice, using the strength, and because the authorities are for that, with a combined project. Both directions, I think they can provide the right balance as a way to get results. And we are going to the example. This example was not improvised. Barcelona was the first city in Europe using strategic planning. The second was Bilbao. The third one was Paris, and the fourth one was London. But not as a rhetorical document. This is one of the sad things we are living. when we talk about strategic planning, sometimes we are just referring to a paper, a PowerPoint, a presentation done by consultants. The strategic planning is a real tool and a machine of build trust, because which is the main problem we are facing? The main problem are not the ideas, because we can develop good projects from good ideas. Of course, it's important and absolutely necessary to have good ideas. And of course, we have a feasible and good way of management of the resources. And we must adapt the real resources to the real objectives. But where are we facing the more risky problems? With people, with organization, with the way of management. This is why the key elements for the success, and of course here in Novi Sad, are in relation with the way of management. I think there are some connections between Novi Sad and Barcelona. Novi Sad is the second city of the state. Novi Sad is not the capital of the state. It's an open-minded, open city with a cultural diversity inside. Culture has been used because ECOC is like a spark, it's a light as a key driver. International celebrations and projects can be used to boost the city project. Creative districts, like the place we are connecting with contemporary challenges and needs. And of course, participation and governance are important to design new models. And another key point, in my opinion, which is to be seen, what's happening here in Novi Sad, is the public-private partnership, which is crucial. Because what will happen when the public funding will end? So, why Barcelona could make this transformation from a grey city without infrastructures and without tourism? We remember that. I'm young, but not too young. And I remember the city without tourists, only some people working in La Rambla. Which was the key? Of course, the experience of the city in 1888, using the Universal Expo to place the city in a better position using the Universal event. And then they repeated in 1929. And then with this idea, they take the idea of the Olympic Games, not as a way to host, no, as a way to finish the city that was not possible to finish under Franco dictatorship. So with this experience, this city that was jumping in history, trying to boost and trying to improve the infrastructure, arrived to a moment, I'm talking about 30 years ago, with the commitment of people, because the strategic plan was started in 1982 and then formally in 1986, to sit in the same table, different visions, the unions, the neighbors, the politicians, the companies, the universities, and building trust. Building trust to go ahead with the main objectives. I'm not going to extend, but Barcelona is a very tiny city. It's only 1,600,000 in 100 square kilometers. Some images from the city of the 60s. And using this as an opportunity, using culture as a key element, they transformed the city, and this was the reason why 22 years ago they started the 22 Art District project. We are going, some images of the deep change, of course with mistakes, we have problems, we are facing new problems, the gentrification, the mass tourism, all these things. But this needs new solutions. From the poverty of the neighborhoods, this was called, no, it's not here, Eva Riccio, the Chinese neighborhood. We're using culture as a drive to attract people, to demolish psychological barriers. All the infrastructures, okay, we could stay a long time talking about. Recovering the beaches. 30 years ago, 35 years ago, people used to spend an hour and a half going to the beach because the water was polluted, there was no public space. So the legacy of this transformation is people can catch the metro and go to the beach directly. Okay, so let's go to the 22 Art. What's the 22 Art District project? This was July 2000. And this is to express the importance that Novi Sad should work, in my opinion, in the governance, because this should go on. Because the outcomes and the outputs are very good, and you have, in my opinion, a huge potential to go on. 22A means from 22A in urban planning means industrial area. And 22A, which right now is recognized by the European institutions, means industrial activities, but friendly with residents of people. We are talking of what? We are talking of the District of Innovation. We are talking about 200 hectares. At the beginning, they were thinking in a strategy to boost activities on new energy, research and development of new energies, biotechnologies, ICT, information technology and communication technology, and media. I was at that time directing the project of the Museum of Design. I was discussing with Oriol Boegas and all the architects how the building and the feasibility plan before, of course, the draft. And they consider that the design, architecture and design should be integrated in this. This is why they change the model of which should be the drivers for change of this district. Okay, we are talking about an area where it's popularly known as the Catalan Manchester, because the first factories in Spain were located here, and from 1820, 1825, and mainly at the end of the 19th century. But of course, this was, at the end of times, a very poor, old-fashioned, without activities district. So aging and depopulation, less economic activity, insecurity, desertization, so urban degradation. This was the situation. And they started thinking how to boost and to connect different activities to improve and to make a urban renewal. And the idea was not clear, but they start to thinking about how, more in what, in how we are doing this. We'll see what we are doing, at first how. And this agreement, this private-public agreement, was a key element to go ahead with the project. We will see a short video of a boy who is more or less 10 or 11 years talking, and then the voice change, and it's the voice of a boy who is 22 age, because this 22 years old, because this video was made 10 years ago. And this is to underline the importance of timing. 4 years, which is the ordinary the ordinary duration of a mandate, it's not the eternity. And urban planning and urban changes need more time. This is why, as a legacy, I think the governance model should be something important. Let's have a look to this. We are talking about recovery, preservation of 114 historical buildings, factories, part of them in the national catalogue, that they have been preserved, restored, and with new uses, which is the best tool for the preservation, to use the historic buildings. How? In a different way. Offices, big companies, startups, co-working spaces, cultural facilities, presentation centers, libraries, exhibition centers, community centers, and of course, attracting universities, faculties, and private or third sector, non-private innovation centers. And of course, another element, because every city is different, but Barcelona has a personality in which residence is part, is in all the cities. We have not a horizontal organization, it's a vertical organization. You can find shops, offices, and people living in the same district, in the same street. And housing is important. And with 2 points, housing for young people, because, okay, you can invest a lot of money, but if you don't attract young people, you are not going to make a real and deep urban renewal. And of course, free market housing offer. So, let's go. What did the municipality? The municipality had the idea, make the branding and the commercial work, attracting big companies to invest there. They invest only in the public space, public transportation, optic fiber. I'm talking 22 years ago. And showing a wonderful scenario, why not to attract big companies as driver of medium companies and, of course, small companies and professionals. So public money was invested only in public infrastructure, public space and infrastructure. And who paid for the new buildings? Private. This is why this is a good example of private-public partnership. Summarizing, this is not update, but despite the crisis of 2008, more than 72 new jobs have been created. 4 million square meters of new and restored buildings. Right now it's close to 2 million already finished. And these 114 industrial heritage buildings restored and with new uses. And more than 3,500 new companies are located there, and from them around 1,300 are connected with creative economy or culture. Let's have the video, which is summarizing all these things. This is, we imagine that, and it's wonderful when you are working in a thing that finally you can touch the real thing. No? This, right now, is the campus of communication. Main companies are located here, and of course, an incredible dense fabric of entrepreneurs and medium companies as well.
As the 19th century drew to a close, a small town, Sant Martí de Provençals, joined the city of Barcelona and became part of the Poblenou area of the city. This was the area 22A, but was popularly known as the Catalan Manchester because for over 100 years it was the economic motor of the country and the most important industrial area in the city. That golden age came to a close at the start of the 60s. The factories moved to other parts of the city and the buildings were left empty to crumble and decay slowly. Over time, a district that had once been so important to the city became isolated. However, with the arrival of the Olympic Games, tons of renovations began. The last section of Diagonal was open in 2000, and with it came the final push. Barcelona City Council approved the project to transform the 22A area, bring it up to date with the rest of the city, and welcome the new millennium. And that is how, 10 years ago,
now
an innovative district
open to all is born. The 22 at, where before there were only factories, now business, training and research centres, housing, public spaces, commerce and professionals in advanced sectors live side by side, responding to the needs of a young, enterprising information society. Business activities share the space with a wide range of housing, services and commerce, which improves the standard of living of the inhabitants and workers. The urban landscape is changing significantly. Prestigious international architects and new values in architecture have led to the design of buildings which have become icons for the city. At the same time, the Project 22 at Barcelona conserves, renovates and makes use of the industrial heritage of the area. Infrastructure has also been brought up to date in order to satisfy the needs of today's society and the most demanding quality and sustainability criteria. This series of transformations has led to new companies from near and far, universities and student housing, technology transfer centres and R&D platforms setting up their home here since the year 2000. 22 at Barcelona is clearly focused towards administration, university and business, along with 5 strategic sectors for the present and future of the city, with the objective of creating synergies to increase competitiveness and positioning in these sectors and help the job market to create, grow and consolidate. A sustainable space for the interchange of ideas, productivity and improvements in the quality of life and work has been created. And so, with the objective of consolidating Barcelona's position as an entrepreneurial, creative and innovative city in mind, it has launched 22 at Urban Lab, which turns the district into an urban laboratory in which companies can experiment with the latest technology. And this is why our district has become a model for exportation into other areas of the city, or other countries for that matter. 22 at is the innovation district in Barcelona and works around the clock to fulfill the dream with which it was born.
This video is 11 years old. And they dissolved, they finished with the agency. Only 28 people were working in this agency. But the project is going on. There is an association. And why? Because this is why I present this here in Novi Sad. Because the governance model, all the things, the important things were designed at that time, and now there's a strength, there's a model which is going ahead. This is crucial. I will end with another example, briefly. This is my city. I'm living 30 kilometers north from Barcelona. And we are talking about, and I didn't see this place, so there are strong connections. So you are doing what is in the agenda, and I think Novi Sad is doing an excellent work. Another point, I think international context, European context, collaboration, partnership should be important. This is the city in the 1940 years, in the 40s, and now they create this, which is Reconvert. It's called the Fábrica de las Arts, the Factory of Arts, which is a place with private companies, startups, library, a meeting point for young people, for traditions, for heritage. It's an open space. Let's have some images, of course, and it's possible to keep the preservation of the industrial heritage, all the engines, the power station, everything, but at the same time, they are presenting the history, but connecting and providing new uses for new generations. And this is a project led by the municipality, but it's open and they participate associations, private companies. There is a residence for artists in a city which is 60,000 inhabitants. So I think these kind of connections are really, really important. Okay, and just to end, just say that in terms of legacy, answering your first question, I think you have the key elements to show this good job, this good work, and this should be, in my opinion, seen as a necessary commitment between not only the city council, I mean the economic operators of the city and the province. Thank you, and I'm sorry for this long presentation.
No, it's thank you. Like I said at the beginning, and I think I want to move on to the next topic, which is the topic of heritage. We were talking in the beginning about different approaches in different contexts. Petar mentioned that it's easier to build a new building than to build upon something that is already existing. It goes in line with what I said at the beginning, that we have some cities like Rome that are built over centuries, and then we have some cities that were built on a plain field. It is easier to build a cube and fill it with art. It's a lot harder to come into this district, into this part of the town, and then start building on something that was already had meaning in the context and the tissue of the city. So my question to you, and maybe we can start with Eva, is why do we do it? Why do we go into these tough processes for preserving something? Like, why do we do it?
Well, I don't know if there is only answer to this question, but from my point of view and with the experience of La Friche, I think, and I think Jordi, you said that, the interesting thing is the process, is the creation process. And I'm not sure this is quite easy to create a cube and to fill it with art. It depends of what do you want to do with this art. If you want to show it, to whom you want to show it and for what purpose. We have been going through different philosophical public policies in France, and we want to offer culture, to show culture to people, because we have to democratize culture and socialize culture. Now we are maybe in another wave of political policies, and which is simultaneous. It's not. We are changing practices and looking to, for example, digital practices where people are learning by themselves. They are seeing things, sharing things, have a peer-to-peer learning and capacity building, and create art by themselves in their own room, which has been by centuries. Also, artists create their own paintings in their own room, but it's another way to create. And when we are investing in those buildings, we want to be inspired also by the heritage that can give. It has been a trend at some point that it is underground and create and be provocative in some destroyed and abandoned spaces, you know. It's a whole aesthetic also in arts. But I think it's maybe creating a new imaginary to further possibilities, and it's kind of specific. I think we will have to, as to an artist, to create in a space where it's not a white page, but something else. There is, it's kind of a feeling and emotion, I think, in this kind of space. History.
Thank you. Petar.
I think that is, to answer the question, why do we do it? I think that the architecture have one part which is a pure art and creation, and after time some pieces and artworks will remain, not all of them. So also with the buildings and some heritage, we are not trying to preserve and to save all the things that we have in the city. Of course, the times are changing, but some pieces, some like old-timers or classic design, it's nice to have in collection in all diversity with the new architecture and everything. So some parts should, I believe that should remain for the next. I think that also that is the deeply inside the fate of some objects. I don't know who created the architects who did, for example, this building, but luckily his project will we can see survive for the one more circle. I think that there is some specific beauty, and also if we would make a completely new object, probably we could get much more square meters to go much higher, and so that's why it's maybe harder and less space, but have something, some value, which is, let's say, in a way abstract and more artistic.
No, I fully agree with Eva and Petar. I only will add another way, and I must admit that I feel comfortable with that. I really think that it's very important after start the project. So this means having the idea, and we are going to do that. So after the answer to the, at the same time, you are asking, what are you going to do? Make another question, why are you going to do this? So this is underlining the importance of the diagnosis. And before anything, of course, both models are, can be good, of course. But I really like the transdisciplinary dialogue and the transdisciplinary diagnosis. I like to work with architects or economists or creators or people who are working in social services, seeing an old building remain, a landscape, whatever, and thinking which problems and which challenges we are facing. As a way to, after that, think and what we can do to achieve and to provide an answer to these problems we are sharing. And then, of course, the artistic approach, the creative approach is important.
Thank you. I would also, we talked about processes, and one of the key element of the process of creating Creative District and of creating 22 Barcelona was participation. And we here come from this part of Europe where participation some 20 years ago, 15 years ago, was not a common thing. It's not something that implies. It's not a thing that you would reach towards, not a tool that you would reach towards when you plan on doing something. So it was usually more top-bottom than bottom-top in the way we used to do things here. And you said at the beginning that Novi Sad is a great example because it uses both of these approaches. It uses top-bottom and bottom-down, and that it's the right thing to do. So my question would be, what I know, what I've learned through this process of Creative District is that this was a participative project. And what I know is that Novi Sad 2022, when they started transforming this space, which was changing throughout different decades and years, they organized a series of talks with people who were using this part of the city, and they organized talks with public, with artists, with decision makers, and they called the talks divani, as far as I know. When they introduced the concept of this transformation, afterwards it was a long process to build trust, like you said at the beginning. And the participation was a key tool in this. So I would like you to, for our audience, to talk about participation a little bit in general, and why is participation a great tool in projects like these, but in other projects as well? I mean, to involve the public and to involve the users in the space and have a dialogue between them, the importance of it. Can you elaborate on it?
I can start. About participation, it's, to be completely honest, kind of, as you said, new mindsets and skills that you have to implement in your professional culture. What I can say is that what it can create, it's cultural, artistic projects which are grassrooted on the local level, and it's really important to do that. Because it has this soul of people. You can see also in the new generation of artists going out of school that a lot of, and a majority of new young artists want to create projects with people and want to be inspired by the experience of people. So I think it's, a grassroots culture which can change in the new generation. For what it can create inside an organization, in an institution, it's kind of uncomfortable to create. Because if you have been in a top-down practices for years, which have been promoted by public policies, which have been promoted by your partners, the same professional practices, it's kind of really difficult to not create make-up-y participation where you are making consultation and at the end you are doing what you wanted to do and without really using what you have listened during the participatory moments. It's not a mean willing of people to do that. It's just really so difficult to just create a new pathway where you are learning by doing. You are really experimenting the process, and sometimes you can fail. And that's okay, because you will not do this on the second time. This is our experience, or what I can say about participation.
Jordi, can you tell us?
Well, I would say three things.
Okay.
First, I think we are, I would say, in an apology of empty words. Many times we use complete empty words. And using these words, we are in the right position. The second one, I think the important thing is not to share the solutions. For me, the solutions normally are provided by experts, and of course with the contrast of ordinary people. But what is important is to share, before the solutions, share the problems, the challenges. I think there's a lot of populism and the use, or behind the use of this empty word of participation. And many times what is just is a marketing plan, mobilizing and giving the figures that we met 3 million people talking about what? So I think there are a lot of methodologies trying to really understand and with empathy trying to provide solutions for general interest, for people. So there's a difference, the second point is there's a difference between participation and, I would say, just noise. The real participation, in my opinion, is to check, to talk, to listen the other, and the other is a neighborhood or a private company owner, all the different social actors and social fabric members, asking which are the problems we should, and the way should be provided, in my opinion, of course, following the opinion of people, but considering the opinion of experts, because about public health, I have no idea. So I think we are devaluating and mixing the concept of the importance of the expertise opinion and the consultation. And the third point, in my opinion, is very important. Try to have accountability and transparency. This is another way of participation. You can follow the problems, because sometimes we have a very incredible, amazing, very noisy processes of assemblies, but then we get lost, and what happened with that project? So I would really like to be aware what is behind all of this.
Okay.
I would just like to ask Mr. Jordi, when you mentioned Barcelona in 1992, how it started, I'm wondering what was that energy and motivation, who overpassed all those groups and who put it together? When you said people from different groups, I can imagine the huge table and sitting the people from companies, government.
Let me tell you something, because I make a study about the outcomes years after of the Olympic Games in terms of access to culture, quality of life, of these things. Let me say, the level of engagement of the citizens of Barcelona for the Olympic Games was incredible. More than 140,000 people were volunteers with the final results. And what I would like to say is that this process should be really have a very transparent and I would say with a high level of accountability methodology. Sorry for this.
No, I'm just, I'm trying to understand, and I think we are searching for a model also, if we want to have all those groups to participate, how to connect them all. So we have a government on one side, and we have companies, and we have different organizations, so they don't know each other's always. So somebody, there is a necessary some initiative and somebody who have trust and so can join all those people together and start dialogue
But to build trust, we need just a table and a coffee or a tea or whatever, and listen to the other. There's a difference. 30 years ago or 40 years ago, the level of mediocrity of the political level was, in my opinion, so right now we are living an apology of mediocrity. You see the populism everywhere, in the left options and the center or the right options. So this is the difference. And how to solve this? Of course, we should fight against that in a positive way. In my opinion is just talk and not talk about the solution. I insist. Which are the common problems? Why is not possible an agreement? Why is happening this disaster in Ukraine? Where is the capacity of dialogue? This is the example of the disaster of policies. So I think the way to get this level of generosity that probably in other moments we had in a better position is start a dialogue, but not talking about, I have the solution for that. No. Which are the problems we are sharing? Sorry.
Thank you.
I was curious to know what was your experience with this transformation of Creative District, because you are someone who now is a resident here. And can you tell us a bit about the processes? Were you participating in it? How it went on? Was there a dialogue and etc.?
As I mentioned, I'm here for almost 20 years and participate with some other friends and architects, some first initiatives for transformation, and then that's stuck in one moment, and then comes up again with this title. And I was participating all the annual analysis for urban planning, and at the moment I'm pretty satisfied because the whole basic idea from the beginning is about to be realized. The buildings will remain in the same shape, and there were a lot of objects which didn't have any value, and that removing those objects, we got much more space open to the Danube, and city supported with all infrastructure in this area. Before that, it was very often flooded with water. This area was a lower level than the rest of the city. So at the moment, I think we have a good basic, good platform for development and also with these few buildings which are already finished and renovated. And I'm just wondering about, as we talked before, about the management of the whole area, with about the content and about how to connect and make it to work as a one system to function well. Because we don't have much experience with something similar in a city, so I believe that people need to learn, and also some new organizations and new models of management need to be learned, and either from own experience or from other models. But we need, and of course, the long-term strategy, which I agree that is most important to have for a long-term strategy. But I'm not sure that we have such a big team to make a strategy for 15, 20 years. It should involve a lot of people from different fields and to sit together to make it. Unfortunately, we have those 20 years stuck in nowhere in 90s and then later. So we are a little late for if we compare to some other cities. So actually, in a way, we are now starting in 1992 as Barcelona started. We are maybe in 1996 at the moment. So we need to speed up and to pass through that transition period, because I think in the field of culture we still didn't complete the transition period between those old models, how it functioned in all system, and the new, because also we are somewhere in the middle. We are not still our society doesn't function completely as a Western Europe, and it's somewhere between. So we need to solve it and to find the right model.
Well, that is our legacy, that we don't function as the rest of the cities in the Western Europe. But from what I've heard I think that you're pretty satisfied with what is happening here. And from what I can tell, because I'm not from Novi Sad, I come here often, but I don't live here. I would say that Novi Sad in the past 10 years, before the title and now, is a rather changed city, and it's progressing with the speed that it wouldn't, I think, otherwise. That is my, like as someone who is observing the change and transformation from the outside, let's say. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it will become the next Barcelona. I mean, we don't know. In 20 years, what will happen?
Yeah, the city is changing very fast and growing very fast. So when it's like a teenager who is growing so fast, and then he's need time to learn how to carry all the new body.
The height and the weight.
And the height and the weight. So also the number of people and potential consumer of culture are much bigger, and new generations which are coming with new ideas, new interests, and poetic and sense, and completely everything is new. So it is necessary to balance all those factors to bring it together, especially the little bit older generation are behind the project and creating that, and you have a new consumers who are coming and who will use. I believe that this will reach some full potential in 5 or 10 years and so we are talking about the people who are now have 15 or 20 years. So they're bringing completely new energy. So that is also something that we need to count and to have on our minds.
You also said something interesting that I wanted to talk about a little bit, is that we live in this part of Europe, and you live in this city, and almost all of the cities here have the same problem. We used to be in one country. We have the legacy of some old age and the way the culture was managed and the way things were functioning. And you said that you need to learn how to manage this complex, how to manage these new models. And the new models would be the last theme or topic for tonight. And I would like to ask you how, to talk about the new models, but to talk about the influence the culture has on urban transformation and vice versa. And I would like to talk about a bit about the content and the spaces and the relations between that, and yeah, just to elaborate a little bit more on that, and we can also start with Jordi now, or Eva.
Okay. About new models. Look, I was really thinking, hearing all our conversation today that, yeah, we are thinking about new models, but we always have inspiration from the old one. And I think that some artists and some cultural organizations tried for years what we call the new model today, but really a silent and invisible way. I think about some artists that we have at La Friche since 25 years, and in which their core jobs is to create participatory projects, because we have this word today, and yesterday it was not the same word. People who are into the prison, people who are in the neighborhoods, well, with the educators, with mediators, with artists all together, and creates this kind of connection. And I think we have the new models in the sense today with some echoes to that form that they didn't have at this level of they should have at this moment when they created things. And in the new models that we are trying to experiment in our space, in this a new topic, another topic, it's how we are making links between entrepreneurship and culture, in the sense that entrepreneurship needs to keep the identity, the cultural identity, the creative identity, without being too, I don't know, change the DNA of the activity. And when we are thinking about cultural entrepreneurship, what it is, about creative industry, what it is exactly, and what jobs it's creating, I think these links are really important today to think about sustainability of culture, independence of culture, and a lot of people, we have to learn about this kind of skills, about supporting in cultural entrepreneurship. And I think some people are really skilled about that, and we have to learn between each other. Another thing is how to cooperate with research as a cultural operator or an artist. An artist is a researcher sometimes, but how we are making bridges with universities when we have this kind of multicultural and transdisciplinary spaces. It's kind of really huge for researchers, I think, but we don't know how to cooperate still. I think full 100% of the potential with universities. Yeah, a lot of things.
Jordi?
Well, I think very interesting what Eva said. Perhaps two aspects in that direction will be the importance, as I said, the importance of, in my opinion, the transdisciplinary approach for design and to create the model. Not only from people of education, not only from the point of view, opinion of the artists and creators. I think these different approaches and ideas should be gathered and discussed and put it together. And then which methodology to use to define the model? Well, a new methodology. 50 years ago, urban planning was something that was only under the supervision of architects and urbanists. This is not reasonable right now. So, as cities, in a good way, should be planned and programmed and managed by this transdisciplinary, the same for the creative and cultural models of participation and innovation, etc. So the first one, the transdisciplinary. And the other aspect I think is important, very important, because I'm really concerned as citizen about this, is the gap, or I would say in positive, I would love a better connection between education and culture. I think as everything is changing very fast and very deeply, there are a lot of other many big empty words behind these supposed changes in the education approaches. So I think these 2 points perhaps could help us to define new models for that.
I have two more questions before we conclude. And one is more like, let's say, like an advice. They are now in the middle of the process of creating creative district, and we are seeing some end results, which are, in my opinion, good. So I would like to ask you, what is it that Novi Sad 2022 has to keep in mind to do and what not to do? What are the, like, is there something that comes to your mind, what, from your own experiences, I mean, you've been through these processes, you know the inside out, the problematics of it. What is it that they have to do in order to make this truly a success story, that in, I don't know, some 10 or 20 years, someone takes Creative District as a good example on some other panel, and what they should steer clear away from?
That's a really difficult question. I don't know if I'm the good person to answer, to give this kind of big advice. Maybe from our experience, it will be, and we talk about this in the informal conversation already, is to think already now about sustainability. And to not like sleep on this result and be proud. You should be proud, but not yet. That the result is not the conclusion. It's just the beginning. And yeah, I think sustainability is the first word I will have in mind. And thinking this sustainability it's a big work, and it's to connect the ideas and the economic models with the governance. It's not disconnected, it's all nourishing itself, and we do not have the solution or the answer. And maybe if we have to think models, there is no models here, I think, because every territory has its specificities. But yeah, just think about this in priority, and from now, when you are creating things, yeah.
So, fully agree. Perhaps I would add something that has been said before. In my opinion, should be crucial in this next step to place culture in the real city project. So I guess there is a city project. Where's the document, where's the governance model, and where's the participation process as a way to enrich and to go on with innovation. So the first point, in my opinion, should be place cultural and creative dimension in the real city project. It should be a concern of architects, urbanists, economists. And the second point, I think, is start to show integrated outcomes and outputs, results. For instance, let me say, this is a wonderful space and in a wonderful district, but a way to achieve the goal that culture is not only for artists and strange people that always are asking for more money, and a way to show something what we know, because we have the figures. Culture is not an expenditure, it's an investment. We have the figures showing that. So in Spain, this is why I admire France, we are in a better position. In Spain, the expenditure, the public expenditure of the all administrations is around 2% of the budget. Okay? But the impact in the GDP is around 4.7. Directly, a direct impact. And then, after that, you should add the indirect impact, because could you imagine the tourist industry, which is 13% of the GDP of Spain, without an ingredient which is called culture? Okay, so the second point, thinking in Novi Sad and other cities, I think should be let the citizenship check something really integrated. For instance, this is a wonderful place, wonderful district, but what about the mobility? What about the quality of the public space? Is there any project thinking in housing for young people, attracting this new blood, this new energy? So these integrated projects, in my opinion, should be very important to be shown to the citizenship as, and of course to the decision makers, as a way that culture is not just something wonderful, it's something strategic as well, as health, education, and of course industry and whatever.
Petar? From your, especially from your point of view as someone who is working in this place.
Yeah, I agree, and I would just add that we mentioned that before also, that we just need a long-term strategy and goals, what we want to like on that journey, where we want to go, even if we change it in a couple of years, at least we need to have some serious long-term plan to be able to measure also all that what we did, what we didn't, and what are the impacts and what are the results, and so.
Okay, thank you. And the last question for the evening, which will close this talk, is what is possible now that wouldn't have been possible without the European Capital of Culture? And I'm talking about Novi Sad, of course.
I will start because I'm very short. So I think the experience of the team and the experience of the neighborhood, the experience of the citizens, showing that something like a spark is going on. I think is the most value. So the process, this is something which is crucial in my opinion, and will have probably a good impact in future.
Yeah, Petar, which one will?
Probably the idea of culture, also to think about it, and importance of culture in our lives, in city design, and also the different needs we have now, and urban space is becoming more and more narrow, with more buildings and everything. So we need also new areas. The society is functioning in a different way. So this is just showing some new possibilities and transformations also in the field of creative industries and culture with all other things and activities. So including the participation of the citizens and neighbors and everything. So transformation and thinking about it, and so I think this opening new fields and as well as new spaces.
Yeah.
Well, I think it has created catalyzer of cooperation, of network. We talked about this a lot in these 3 days, about the importance of the networks and about this capacity building. And for sure, this moment is a true help for investment in human energy and a catalyst of cooperation for the future. So it's made a push, a big push. And that's really interesting. It has to be grabbed.
I was thinking the same, because from my point of view, the Novi Sad became the meeting point of the area, and I think we meeting here is the testament to that. So I thank you a lot for your time and conversation that we had tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Presentation and this discussion, knowing a little about European cultural capitals and trying to go on what you say at the end about the question of methodology, how do we do it, and this question, in fact, of cultural management, we would say. I remember a report which was written by 2 experts for the European Parliament. It was 99 or something like that. And among the recommendations, they say that it would be important that the team, which has been organizing, preparing, and so on, that the team should stay after the capital, should stay, let's say, 6 months or 1 year in the place, active. So in order to transmit all the experience, let's say the good and the bad, all the experience, which could be then spread all over the city and for all cultural actors. So I would like to know what you think of this recommendation, which is not mine.
What I think or what we all think?
So, no, I think, as mentioned before, I think the 1 year celebration of the European Capital of Culture is important, but this, in my opinion, is old-fashioned. We should need, for instance, and I suggest that some years ago, the labels, so I mean the standards, to keep the level of public investment, private participation and funding, the good experiences and practices of management of cultural policies, these things. But answering to your question, I think more important than to stay during 6 more months is the continuity of the whole project, because for me, the European Capital of Culture can be, and many cities during the history of these 35 years of history of this celebration, going on with different names, the whole projects or part of the projects, and I think this is very positive. And a second aspect is the European network. Let's remember that Jacques Lang and Melina Mercuri, when they had the idea, they want to help to build a common cultural space based on diversity. So the partnership with other cities, from other countries, I think is another aspect, in my opinion, more important than of course, I fully agree to stay, to keep the teams going on at the minimum of 6 months. Because what I suggest is don't go on with this process, boosting culture in the central agenda of the city.
Yeah, listening to all of you creates some, how shall I say, spark, not just a spark, maybe a fire has been started already. And going back to the very nature of UN Habitat, the very purpose of this sort of networking is actually for the healthiness of our minds. Because the city is no good without people, and it has to be with people of healthy. And how do they get healthiness is actually interaction from either top down and bottoms up, just like what you're trying to say, the disciplinary. And I think the collaboration is how to create that collaboration, because right now, from what I can hear is, at the end of the day is how much does it cost? So to me, there has to be a big patron. There has to be a big patron that can sign big checks to actually make this thing sustainable. And that's the reason why, if I were to relate from my field of in architecture about 100 resilient cities, Rockefeller signed off 100 cities to actually do, because there's a lot of common problems of floods, common problem of illness and sickness. So with this culture, there need to be this sort of compendium to understand each and every one. We do not want to be the same, but we have to be diverse. But it has to be continued, because without culture, you are nothing in the country or the state or the city. So I think we need to bring down to the level of not just us, but to the children of 5-year-old, 3-year-old, to understand that culture is not just about dancing or singing, but it's actually about lifestyle. And I think certainly Serbia has got lots to offer, and this is probably my suggestion that it could be the starting point. And why it has to be here? Because the infrastructure is there. You don't have to think what sort of building shape, whatever. The building shape, the space can be altered. as what pandemic has said, that you need to be a flexible space. So we are in this flexible space now. So that's probably my opinion. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.